And rescue workers in Taiwan search for more than 700 still missing, feared buried in a landslide triggered by Typhoon Morakot. In Taiwan, helicopters have brought out about 150 people from a mountain village in the south that was hit by a huge mudslide, but the search is still going on for many people still feared trapped there. Reports say that hundreds remain unaccounted for. Typhoon Morakot also struck the east coast of China, and a number of homes there collapsed following a massive landslide in the town of Pengxi in the eastern province Zhejiang, from where Chris Hogg sent this report.
These were homes destroyed in seconds when half a hillside fell on top of them. The late-night landslide, triggered by relentless rain, piled mud and debris to the families living below. They were buried alive.
Suddenly I heard rumbling sounds. At the beginning I thought it was a steamroller driving by. I was curious as to why it was moving so fast, so I stood up and heard the sound across the street. And in about 1 second, the whole building came crashing down.
Not all those pulled from the rubble survived, but some were saved, although badly injured. Officials say several homes had been empty, their owners elsewhere looking for work. Rescuers spent hours digging through the debris, checking there was no one left behind. In Taiwan, a different story. There, several hundred are still missing from one village, buried by a river of mud. It's completely cut off. This man from the village says he thinks his father and mother have been washed away in the floods. Across the island, much of the farmland, many of the roads are still underwater. The Taiwanese authorities warn that as rescue and relief efforts continue, the death toll there is likely to rise. Chris Hogg, BBC News, Zhejiang in eastern China.
Taiwan and China were not the only Asian nations to be affected by these dreadful disasters, as on Sunday the 9th of August 2009, a terrible landslide occurred in India, where at least 43 people were buried alive. Watch another shocking report.
Dozens of people are dead or missing in the Himalayan foothills after a landslide also triggered by heavy rain there. Residents of 3 remote villages were buried alive in Sunday's disaster. Officials are blaming the tragedy in part, in this case, on major deforestation. It makes the land definitely more susceptible to this kind of phenomenon.
After battering Taiwan, Friday and Saturday, the 7th and 8th of August, Typhoon Morakot hit China on the coast of the Fujian province about 4:20 p.m. Sunday, with winds which clocked 73 miles per hour in its eye, according to the province's meteorological bureau. Watch this.
This has been a bad few days weather-wise for Taiwan, China and Japan. Of the 3, Taiwan was hit hardest. James Blake looks at the widespread destruction.
A family watches helpless as their home is ripped from its foundations by the floodwaters. This is what Typhoon Morakot has left in its wake in Taiwan. After a massive rainfall over the weekend, rivers have burst their banks. One village, Shaolin, has been almost completely buried in a mudslide. It's impossible to reach the village now by land. The roads have been destroyed. So far, about 100 have been rescued by military helicopters and taken to emergency shelters. The rest of the villagers, possibly up to 600 people, are still missing.
The mountain collapsed. We live on a lower level, and the landslide was on a higher ground. All my relatives were buried.
My mother and father are in there. No one survived. I have 4 relatives in there.
The rescue effort is slow and agonizing. Bad weather has stopped helicopters reaching some of the more remote villages in the south of the island. The Taiwanese president today toured the affected areas and came face to face with one man's personal tragedy.
It's not only my father who's missing. There's a lot of people with no food.
Everything's been washed away by the floods.
We've come to help everybody. I understand how you feel. You miss your father.
It may be several days before officials know exactly how many people have been killed in Taiwan and how many are still trapped by the floods and the mud, as hundreds of people now wait and hope their families have somehow managed to escape. The typhoon, downgraded now to a tropical storm, has passed across to China, where 500,000 people in Fujian province had already been evacuated. The authorities say nearly 2,000 houses have been damaged, and in many areas, as rescue teams have discovered, there's still a high risk of mudslides. In Japan too, similar scenes. This damage was caused by a separate tropical storm. Here too there have been floods. Here too thousands have been evacuated. And here too the exact number of people killed by these storms is still unknown.
Among many other disasters, take a look at this weekend of terror. The 7th of August saw Typhoon Morakot strike Taiwan, lashing rain and provoking flash flooding. The 8th of August saw Typhoon Morakot ravage the island of Taiwan with record-breaking rainfall, the worst in half a century. The 9th of August saw a 6-story hotel swept away in floodwaters in Taiwan. 1 million evacuated as Morakot hits China, while in India, 43 people were buried alive under debris in a deadly landslide. The 10th of August saw Typhoon Ito hit West Japan and 2 earthquakes shake the seabeds of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, triggering a tsunami warning for 5 surrounding countries.
Live from CNN Center, this is The Brief with Jim Clancy.
And this is the half hour where we go straight to the bottom line of the stories that are making news all around the world. Hello and welcome, everyone. A year's worth of water, imagine it, a year's worth, dumping down from the skies within just days. That's what Typhoon Morakot is doing as it moves further into China and leaves heavy floods in Taiwan. Authorities are saying this now, nearly 2.5 meters, that's right, 2.5 meters of rain fell over Taiwan over the weekend. Chinese media report more than 300 homes have collapsed there. Thousands of hectares are flooded already. Taiwan's government says at least 12 people were killed, 56 missing, but wait a minute, that figure far from complete. Police say in one mountain village alone, hundreds of people may have been buried alive in a landslide. Andrew Lee spoke with Jonathan Mann about the rescue efforts just a short time ago from Taipei.
Things are terrible down here on the ground here in Taiwan as I see it. In the village of Xiaoling, this one single village, which ceased to exist, now 400 and around 800 people are still missing. Now, they could be stranded, but the exact number of people that are waiting to be rescued, it's hard to estimate. Why am I saying that? Because reports are still coming in, and SOS are still coming in. Because as we speak now, the power lines are being fixed, the phone lines have been fixed, the cell phone lines the hub stations are being fixed. So stranded people, they are sending in SMS short messages, calling out for help.
Calling out for help. Let's shift our focus now to China, the mainland. More than 1 million people displaced by Morakot's floodwaters. Emily Chang has more on the storm and the enormous relief effort being mobilized by Beijing.
Worst rain is over in Shanghai and the storm has now moved north. It's the areas south of Shanghai that are still a serious concern. We're talking about Fujian and Zhejiang province. These are very low-lying areas, fragile coastline where river deltas fill up quickly. They've already gotten a lot of rain and more is not going to help. So landslides and flash flooding still a grave danger in those areas. Winds are still gusting, trees have fallen, villages have been inundated, and thousands of homes have collapsed. A 4-year-old boy was killed when his home collapsed in the town of Wenzhou. State-run media says rescuers tried their best to save him, but it was just too late. As the rains continue, Chinese officials are riding around on bicycles to the hardest hit areas, passing out things like